Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Classic Quest podcast, the show where we break down the classicest hip-hop albums throughout history, even modern history, even albums like Freddie Gibbs and Madlib's Piñata, which is a little more on the recent side, but on the quality side, it still brings it. So that's what we do here. My name is Holden Stefan Roy.
I am your lady friend, Bonnie.
And to clarify, we talk about albums like Freddie Gibbs and Madlib's Piñata, track by track, giving our thoughts and opinions on every single song. It's been a couple weeks. This is a rusty intro, but we gonna press on. We gonna smash through that Piñata track by track and explode the candy on the masses. And that's what we're gonna do. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, so we're back. We got this review lined up. This one is a patron request over from Mr. Coney Sparks. So thank you. This is your review, even if it's a little bit late. And yeah, we're gonna get through it without wasting any real times and whatnot. So basically, special thanks in advance to the patrons: Ismail, Gadamsi, Chris Pratt, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black, Hurricane, Linda Williams, Coney Sparks, and Scribble. They're dope. We're gonna touch on that at the end, but now we're gonna get into the beginning as to where we introduce our familiarity with the artist Freddie Gibbs and Madlibs to kind of make it a little fairer. We realized along the way that the people who tend to click on our reviews tend to be fans of the particular artist that we are talking about, meaning that if we come off all grandiose, like we know some things, y'all don't necessarily like that when it's not so true. So we thought it'd be cool to start off each show, telling you where we're at in our Freddie Gibbs and Madlib fandom at this point. So why don't we start with you, Bonnie? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your thoughts and experience going into this album?
Well, I mean, I got nothing. Not that I've got nothing, actually. I have a little bit of something. I didn't know Freddie Gibbs. But I did know who Madlib was. And I knew the name, and I looked him up, and I was like, oh yeah, he worked with like MF Doom on like Mad Villain. And we covered that album. So I was like, I knew that name. So I mean, it's going to be, you kind of know just from that experience, or at least I did, or do, whatever, that it was going to be an interesting sound. And I think that's definitely what we have here. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
So on my hand, it's a little bit different. Very recently, Mr. Christopher received free concert passes to go see Freddie Gibbs perform in promotional single for the Bandana album. I think it's Bandana that just came out with Madlib. So Freddie Gibbs and Madlib teamed up again, dropped a project somewhere recently, 6 months-ish kind of land. Chris and I actually ended up reviewing that album, so we put that out there. Because Chris was supposed to do a review and they never did, so we had to live up. So we talked about the album.
Right.
Chris went to that little show. It was at Montreal's Mural Festival, so cool of Freddie Gibbs to come on through for that. And I just had to say that I knew who Freddie Gibbs was because he was featured on like Somebody or Another's album that we had come across, because like Freddie Gibbs is more on that, I'm going to call it crime side of rhyming.
Okay,
and all the big guys in that genre have like worked together and across the different albums we reviewed, but I couldn't remember who it was. But his voice is very distinct. So like the second you hear it once, it's kind of locked in, and the next time you hear it, you just remember. Plus his name is Freddie Gibbs. Plus I think we actually did one of his collab albums, Chris and I think Currency, Freddie Gibbs and somebody did it. So like we've covered him a few times, and like I've been kind of left with this impression that he's an excellent fucking rapper. Like he's one of those names that I really, really enjoy. Didn't Freddie Gibbs and Currency do an album? Anyway, I should be knowing this because it's like we did these reviews, but whatever. So Madlib, on the other hand, is kind of left me with the same kind of impression because he's again a name that I've come across a few times. I've listened to a fair bit of his work. We did do the Mad Villainy, but I'm pretty sure I've just done other albums he's been involved with, or at very least I've come across his production time and time again, and I'm constantly left with like this feeling that Madlib has this very distinct skill set where he can make replayable records.
Yeah.
Like you never get
and interesting ones. Like he's very unique, and like he does a great job.
So, Coney Sparks requested this and gave me a list of albums to choose from, and I think we did the Freddie Gibbs Madlib album pretty recent, so I picked that one because it seemed like, I remember a lot of people, by a lot, it was probably like 2, being like, yo, check out Piñata, and I said I would, and this time I lived up to that, thing where I actually said I would, and then I did it recent. That never happens. But I was just really excited to go into this. I guess you could say I was like a baby fan of both of these guys, like to the point where if I see either of these names, it just kind of creates a level of excitement for me. And I like the album cover too. It's just simple. It's got that like zebra skin border surrounding just Freddie sitting there.
Yeah.
Just being Freddie.
Yeah.
Just simple.
He just looks pretty chill. Like, I mean, like the zebra print makes me think of like Wild, of Africa, of like something like that. So like that's kind of like what I get from it. And then like this kind of cool guy just like sitting on like a park bench or whatever.
And then basically Freddie Gibbs has this like quote for the title where he just kind of felt like the hoods of Piñata is shit, and just kind of, I don't know, I'll get to it later when we talk about the track. But for me it's an interesting title because a Piñata is so fragile and often interesting to look at, but it's just like it basically exists to be destroyed to get to the contents that's within inside of it, So in a way it's almost like you tear off the wrapping and the cover of the album just to like destroy the Piñata, the more pretty side of it, to put that boring ass CD you never look at into a player and consume the music.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it. I thought it was pretty. Plus, it's distinct. I knew this album existed for a long, long time, mostly because it's called Piñata, and it came up on a list somewhere or another. And how the fuck do you forget an album called Piñata? I don't know. I never did. Piñatas are a fun thing. I associate them with joy and candy in my mind. I don't know about you, but I've had some piñatas at my birthday parties in my youth where we smashed that shit and the candy was inside of it.
I remember in like grade 11 or something like that, like we made a piñata, but we filled it with like those little like vodka bottles and stuff like that.
That's fantastic. Speaking of that, it kind of, how do you feel about the title and cover actually?
Same. There's really not much else to say about like either of those. We kind of covered what the cover was, and the title is what it is. I like it too, same sort of thing. Apparently it had to do with a dream that he had.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that more. And this, I don't think we mentioned it either, that this came out March 18th, 2014.
Yeah, so it's cool. It's one of the more modern albums we've done on the Classic Quest podcast. Not to say we don't talk about modern albums. Chris Chrome has a little review coming for y'all soon of a very modern Denzel Curry project. But the truth is, y'all are here because we put up the reviews. So we is the Supplier. All right, Bonnie, how do you feel about this little intro bit here?
I love the beat. Like, it's awesome right away. It's like these drums or whatever, like the hand drums. And I like it. I really like the first line. I find it's true. Only this, like the strong survive. Doing no matter what you gotta do to survive. Sometimes even at the cost of hurting others. And it's basically like a skit with like a super sick beat that I like a lot. And like, like when I was listening to this for the first time, I was like, yeah, I'm already for sure gonna like this album. And I think it sounded pretty dope to start with. Very cool. I gave it a 4.75.
I like it because it feels a bit like a throwback too. It's it has that more sample driven element to it. You're using, like right now Freddie Gibbs isn't talking, so you get that first thing. They're supplying dope to the Black and Mexican communities. I mean, it shows that there's almost like a political side to it. There's something bigger. Like, yes, they're involved in the dope game, but can we talk about why there's a dope game in the first place? And I like the fact that it almost is provocative enough to, like, shed that light. It's very blunt, but it's also interesting. And at this point, I guess, education is starting to become a little more accessible. It's definitely something you can Google, is I guess where I was trying to go with that. Yeah. And then it also shows the mentality with the next little sample where the strong has to survive. The thing was to get it. It really didn't matter what the means was or how you had to go and get it. That means you had to step on 10 people to get $1, then you step on 10 people. And this is what I'd heard constantly, only the strong survive. And like, it's a powerful like sentiment. So like, if you really like think about life, the internet and the way that we all manifest and consume information today is, I guess, a present reality, and we often like to go back in time and apply the ethics and the moralities and the opportunities of today to like a yesteryear situation. But like, I think what the point of all this is to contextualize the mindset of that reality that used to be, where you basically grow up your whole life being told by older cats and older folk and, you know, people who have, let's say, achieved a level of success in this environment, that the only way to make it through is to be ruthless, to do what you have to do, to think for yourself and for your family, because what else are you going to do? Are you really going to rely on handouts, or are you going to go out there and get it and actually achieve it? And if you think about the fact that, let's say, like, you can't just go watch a YouTube ad where a new opportunity is going to pop up in your face prior to, like, what, 2008? You know, even, like, later than then. So even it just kind of sheds a light on how a dude, like, you know, especially an older rapper guy, because I don't think Freddie Gibbs is that young. I think he's more on the older, late 20s, early 30s ends. I might be wrong. But like, he doesn't sound like he's 15 is what I'm trying to convey. So it sounds like he would have grown up in that world before the internet, at least, because like basically
he's currently 37 years old.
Yeah, so he's absolutely, back then he was like 32, 31, whatever. So he grew up like pre-internet era. So I think it's cool to hear these kinds of samples, these kinds of mindsets that are layered over just that popping kind of beat that sets a context to let you know a little bit, almost like the backstory to where Freddie's coming from before Freddie's about to come in and do his thing on the next track. And I thought it was really good. I thought it was a powerful start, and I gave it a 4.5.
Nice.
Just to give Madlib his credit, those drums just have your head bopping.
Absolutely, yeah.
It really sets the ambiance. And it's really cool to see how you can create such a different experience with these like more boring, dreary sounding samples by putting the right musical, emotional element underneath it to kind of, like, they made it bop, you know? Like, it wasn't just kind of boring. It was, like, some serious shit, but you kind of vibing. You kind of getting into the vibe as you move into talking about Scarface. Yeah. This the type of shit that make me walk around like this, pretending like I can be all fly, and I try to do little dances and stuff, and I don't know, if you can't see me, whatever, I'm bopping around, like, this beat just right off the jump, like, it makes me wish I could do some sea walks and shit, because like it makes me want to go, like, watch YouTube videos to get my dance steps on. I'm not even kidding, like, it's fucking, isn't it bumping? Doesn't it make you want fucking moves and shit?
Yep.
Anyway, before I talk a whole bunch, how do you feel about this track?
Well, I definitely agree with you. It definitely has like a sick beat, as well as like a sick like rap flow. I think it's really cool. And we've got some like really interesting like old school like samples like mixed in, and like Madlib is like clearly creative and like really like interesting in how he like makes his music. And so this is like basically a story about encounters with dangerous situations that he's been in growing up, involving, you know, drug dealing and violence and like, you know, that sort of mischief. And, you know, doing what you have to do to survive. So it kind of continues on with that sort of theme. And then like an old school like news clip is like featured as well. And I think it's like a very like interestingly creative piece of music, and I really like it. And it changes so much that it doesn't get like stagnant or boring. And it's really like fun, and I don't know, it just is so unique. It's very different from like, you know, the normal stuff that you hear on the radio. So yeah, very cool. I like the way that it makes me feel, and like that it is able to like instantly like transport me and like put me in like a different like headspace. And I think that that's kind of cool, and I think that's like, you know, a fantastic compliment to both of them, really. So I gave it a 4.75 on 5.
Yeah, it starts out real strong. The beat kicks in. Odd. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not as sold on the intro and the outros with the cutting into samples. I felt like I wanted more Freddie.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because, like, you get through the intro and then you got that chiefin' on, I think I hear my heartbeat, smoking got me rolling. And I'm like, whoa, what kind of a flow. He comes in kind of early on that shit. He fucking like just rides that beat like he basically is rapping like he's a marijuana high on that beat. Like, Like, it just feels like weed smoke up in the air, flowing and just kind of vibing. And, like, it's got this tight boppiness to his flow that just, like it hugs it in a way where it's because he came in early and he was consistent with it that he just kind of made it, like, fucking just fly over it, just gliding, almost like he's dancing on the beat with his freaking voice. And I think that is my favorite part of it. So when he stops doing that, because it's only, like, at most half the track, right? Because the rest of it is intro and outro and whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, come back to that, like, super sick ass flow and whatnot. But I could live with it because, again, it's super fucking fire. It just wakes you up. Like, so I was hitting up the ellipticals and whatnot on this one, and every time it's just like I found myself achieving some of those higher, like, effort points while this song came on, because it gets you pumped, it gets you rolling. And I think that's what makes it fun, right? Like, at the end of the day, on a lyrical point, it has a more heavier tone and it's more serious to, like, think about. But when you just kind of playing it, it has this very enjoyable, gets you lost in it kind of experience. Plus, he's not, like, overly fucking grandiose or annoying about it, right? Like, look, there's some guys who just want to tell me about the brands and just want to tell me whatever. Instead, this is more ambiance shit. Like, let's jack this person because he got some shit we can't afford. I'm like, that might be, like, the most relatable reason you would rob somebody. Yep. Like, we're broke and we can't afford it, and this guy's coming around here and he can afford it. I mean, it's not, like, a moral reason.
It's reasonable, I guess.
But, like, it's not
when
like...
you're in that situation, it's reasonable.
But, like, it's still human, right? Like, it's like, okay.
I feel like the philosophers would, like, get it.
Well, I feel like instead of just, like, I'm trying to get rich, it's like, yo, we are in a desperate situation over here. And, I mean, yes, they're all trying to get rich and whatever, but just the way you put the logic down, like, it's just simple. Like, you have it and we don't. And when you think about the little intro that came before it, right? Because I've been thinking a lot about albums versus singles, because I'm reading the Steve Jobs books, and one of the biggest pushbacks against the iTuneization of the music industry was artists going, yo, but albums need to be played in a particular order to have the full impact. And when you think about that mentality of, you know, he just got some shit we can't afford, coupled with the little only the strong survive speech we just got, it adds, like, an extra layer of oomph to it that wouldn't exist if you just heard this track in and of itself. So I think the placement is really strong because he's already justified, in a sense, why this is the way it is, but then kind of relating it to his own personal experiences, and which is deeper, man. I'm telling you straight out, this album is, like, pretty fucking classic territory. It makes me happy to have it on a show called The Classic West, because, yo, Madlib's fire. But, like, it's just strong, and it's got, like, that level of building on it, right? Like, I feel like he's trying to communicate, like, a bigger story of his life and whatnot through it. You know, Another Day in Gary, a couple people in the morgue, he's got the beating with his weed crumbs on plush sheets. People want to hate, they got yellow taped and white sheets. And it's just such context, right? Like, and in Gary, which Google Maps shows to not be a pleasant place.
It is not the best place. It's pretty abandoned. We'll get more into that.
So, like, you have people who are basically dying a lot, crime, you know, weed's a regular part of it, but it just paints it in a way where it's got that more, this is the way it is, rather than, it's not saying feel bad for me. It's not saying this is cool. It's just, this is my day, you know? And he steady talking my chopper, going, let it rip, all the bullets that got my name on them still in the clip. Life's a bitch, I was a virgin, hope she let me fuck. And I like that, you know? Because, like,
it's honest.
And it's like, at least if Let's Gonna Be a Bitch, you get a chance to get with her, get something out of it, take your quick little nut. Pray I miss before a person bust his last nut. Homie 84 got the same rims that mine had. Freddie jumped up in it like a freshman with the dime bags. He started small time, dope game, cocaine, pulling stick ups to the person from a no name. And it's just like, my whole world is kind of desperate and sad, so my way to fuck the world and get it was to create my little empire, which fundamentally migrates into the music distribution, where I guess the arts and the narcotics have a similar mindset required to pull off through. If you consider that your music is your product, And, you know, anyway, y'all know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm sure plenty of crack-dealing rappers have eloquently put this in much better detail than I have. Not in punk detectives in my section know my whole name, Gibbs. And that's a fascinating point. Like, it's gotten to the... He's elevated. He went from Pebbles to the whole thing. He's, like, accomplished. And it's almost like this kind of sets you up to be like, I've lived through a very challenging life. And I have evolved myself into a significantly better person. And then he has his outro where he sounds kind of tough, you know. What, you know, motherfucking ski mask. You know what you know about that? Motherfucking duct tape to a person's face. And it's like, all right, that's cool. And then there's another.
Probably not.
I mean, like, it has an
intensity
it's cool
to it when you say it, but like,
fits, like,
it's probably
the track.
not actually cool to have duct tape on your face.
And then I don't know, it kind of like rolls out. I'm giving this a 4.5. Again, I'm not as sold on the intro and outro parts. I think the verse, the beat, everything else, like the package is really good. I would have preferred it to be a little different. That's okay. That's my opinion. I still think it's pretty fucking stellar. And every time it comes on, you just get sucked into it in a really good way. It's a great follow-up to the intro. And yeah,
if you get into it a little bit deeper.
It will be deeper. So I suppose on the gangster albums, you go and you have the ones that are like 11 straight tracks of like the same thing. And a good example of what I love of this is Griselda, or like not Benny the Butcher. West Side Gun might have like 17 tracks in a row of him just flossing. It sounds amazing all the time, and I can doot for ages. But what I wasn't expecting is for the next track to transition into such a different subject, like a serious, like, when do you get this take on a love song, right? I mean, we'll go through it. We'll let even Barney start because it's a love song. But I just had to say, the placement of this track on this album got my interest because it made me realize I have to pay attention to this album. These songs are actually going to be about things rather than just aimless flossing, which the first track didn't necessarily convey the same level of that. And keep in mind, I haven't gone through, like, I'm just saying this, like, if you listen to a lot of albums, sometimes you don't have to pay attention. Sometimes you do have to pay attention. Yeah. And this song proves, anyway, how do you feel about this one?
Like, I mean, it's pretty cool. This one has like a classic story vibe to it. Like right away, you kind of get that just because it has that kind of like high pitched, like sort of like violin or something sort of sound that's like in it. So this is basically about, this girl that kind of like got him into a little bit of trouble, and he fell for her and, you know, gave him some good sex. And then
good sex. She sucked him like a vacuum.
Yeah, like that. And then she like moves on like without him.
He goes to jail though.
Yeah.
That's why she moves on.
Yeah. And then I was a little confused. I'm like, then he's like with the same girl, or he's with a different girl. I wasn't sure which one. And then I assume it's the same girl. So he goes back with her, I guess. And she, you know, loves like the hood life and like all of that kind of stuff. And he loves her. And then she goes off to college, and she gets engaged to like some like smart guy trying to be like an astronaut, and realizes that there's probably more to life than the hood life and like, you know, the trouble and, you know, all the unfortunate situations that happen there. And she's able to do something better for herself and get away from that, and, you know, make, you know, good choices in her life. And he's kind of like sulking about it, you know, that she got away, and he's kind of like, man, that's my girl. And then in the third verse, he's kind of like talking about kind of years later, and, you know, where he's at in his life, and he's making music, and, you know, girls are always trying
making money,
and of course money. And girls are always trying to like get him, you know, to, you know, do what girls and boys do. But he's like basically like not about that, and he doesn't want to commit or anything like that. And then the girl calls him up out of nowhere, and you know, even though she's pregnant, and they kind of like talk about like the good old days, and you know everything else, and she confesses to him that the baby isn't like her partner's, and it's just, you know, some other guys, and she's kind of screwed her.
It's like his baby.
Is it his baby?
That's what I took from it.
Oh, I thought it was somebody else's baby because I thought he hadn't seen her in a long time.
Well, I mean, because the kid he had 5 years ago or whatever, because the story moves ahead.
Oh,
so
okay.
that kid she had with college guy was actually Freddie's baby, and now she's coming through and Freddie's rich to be like, oh, Freddie, the kid's actually yours.
Okay, maybe
I
missed on that. I thought it was just like she was like, you know, needed to vent or whatever, and that she had just kind of like screwed herself over. But then like he's basically like, nope, I'm not gonna help out with that. Like that's not my problem. Like you deal with it.
Well, I mean,
I suppose it's like, I don't know how I like in that circumstance, like how you would react to that. So I suppose that it's like a reasonable reaction.
I mean, I think he put it proper. It cut him real deep to find out that, like, you know, he'd been denied that.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, well, I'm not gonna like give you money at this point. Like, I mean, he's hurt, I guess. And so yeah, I mean, it's another nice and kind of like honest, true story about like something that happened in his life, and you know, I like that kind of stuff. It feels a little bit more real, even if I feel like,
well, I don't know, he said he's not gonna give her money. He just kind of was like, he ends the song like, damn, what the fuck, so what you trying to say, baby ain't his, whose is it? Yeah. And then it just kind of ends. It leaves it like she dropped this bombshell on him, and then that's,
but like maybe she doesn't even know whose it is, and she's just trying to get like money out of him or whatever.
I think that's the suspicion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's also like, because there's the bigger arc of this track, right? Like, so it starts off slamming, half a thing of heroin in the bathroom, you know, keeping AK in the back up in the back room, cooking me a clean, and she sucked me like a vacuum. Took a vacation to county, I'll be back soon. So she's all into him when he's a cool ass drug dealer and whatever. He goes away to jail and he's going to be back soon. Mm-hmm. Sent a couple zeros money on my JPay, paying off the CO, smoking on the gateway. So he's got money, he's chilling, he's having a good party, and then he finds out shortly after that she gave my thing away, as in she'd been fucking around, and she's about to have a baby with a person, that's what they say. So in this reference, she gets pregnant while he's there, and that's the time, like in verse 3, where she's kind of alluding that this pregnancy is his pregnancy.
Okay. So I'm like, but I thought he was like away in jail or something, but maybe, I don't know.
And then it's like, well, now he's in jail, so damn, well, please say it ain't so. Took off the gloves, say it's love when it ain't, though. Her classmate was coming over. That was strange, though. Apparently, the homework ain't all he came for. So while she was dating him, he was dating the smart guy, and then whatever. Maybe you grew up, maybe I'm still living like I'm 16, like a child running wild in the streets. Man, I put that bitch up on her feet. She cut a person deep. So it's like he set her up. He probably helped her get into school, you know, while he's doing his illicit. Then she meets the next guy. And then he feels betrayed because she shacked up with next dude and whatever. And then he goes up to another town and he's kind of commenting on her, how like she used to like the type of shit, now we don't fuck around. Girl, you used to say them other people's wasn't hood enough, got your little degree, now people from the hood ain't good enough. And I think that's the real interesting point. It's almost like, imagine being that guy. So you spend your whole high school essentially being told by these people, and then these people, I mean the women around you, and I'm not saying it's for everyone, I'm saying this is the context that he's painting here, that you gotta be hard, you gotta go make that money, you gotta go slime that dope because it's the only way to be impressive. And then 5 years later, when it's all time for families and settling down, these same girls is like, fuck you, I'm gonna go with smart geeky dude and leave you alone. And that must be something, right? And that's what this song kind of caught me off guard, because it was like, Ice Cube isn't usually this eloquent, let's say, when he describes his disdain for the ladies. Yeah. But I feel like in the same way that Freddie Gibbs captured the humanity of that line, like, you know, you have more than me, so I have to rob you. He's kind of putting to disdain why he feels this way towards these women, with a very vivid example of like how he got played, where like, you know, so I hope you feel the pain I'm feeling when you hear this song. And what a constructive way to like deal with it. He's not lashing out, he's not even being very specific, he's just expressing this feelings of a circumstance that cut him real deep. And then he finds out years later that, the baby's his in the third verse. And it's just, to me, like, powerful. I think one of my favorite lines is, well, bitch, how you get the number? Like, every other month I'm switching up that motherfucker. And it's like, it's crazy to him. Like, he's trying to be discreet or whatnot. And this girl is so dedicated to get to him, to try to get something out of him, to the point of using a kid as leverage for him. Like, why is she going up now, years later? Oh, because he's rich or whatever. And I thought it was really strong. It was like, holy fuck, there's a lot to, like, absorb in this track in terms of, again, you end up looking at Freddie Gibbs like he really got played bad. Like, he's just a guy trying to deal with the circumstances, and here's another layer of complexity to the onion that is his life. I give this a 4.5. I really liked it.
Yeah, I don't think it's great. Gave my grade. I gave it a 4.75.
That's cool. Next up features the homeboy Danny Brown, whose voice is the literal definition of high. So let's talk about song placement. Supplier sets the context of the album, serving as the overture, the intro of, like, the experience. Scarface brings in Freddie real. He comes from a harsh environment, putting down the world. Deeper shows the complications of the love situation, of how this girl effectively took advantage of him to move on to a better place in life and abandon him. And in response to being cut so deep, he got high. I'm like, oh shit. Yep. That's actually, like, really good song placement. It's actually, and I'm like, I know it might sound like I'm being a little funny with it, but no, it's for real. Like, also there was a music video to Deeper. Freddie looks attractive, I would just imagine. He kind of has like a Tupac-esque feel to him, I think, when I look at him.
All right.
Like, he's got that deeper voice. He's got that airy presence. I don't know. The video didn't do a lot for me, but it felt nice for the sake of the last song. This one doesn't have a video. How do you feel about the track High?
This one's nice. I feel like the ending to, like, the last song, like, flows nicely into this one. So, like, that's another thing about, like, placement on, like, an album and, like, how it all flows together. And this one is all about surprise, getting high. And his parents basically think he's, like, a loser and that he's, like, not going to school, and he's, like, in, like, the situation where people are needing things from him, and but he's and people are feeling stressed towards him because he's, like, needing to do a bunch of things. But he's like, whatever, I take it easy and smoke weed. And he also talks about that he can also get you weed if you need. And it definitely has, like, a 1970s sort of vibe to it. Like, I like that kind of, like, the whole thing sort of sounds like a record, kind of a little bit different eras, but sort of like a Motown record overall. So I think that that's kind of, like, cool sort of vibe that I get from it. And in, like, the second verse, surprise, he's still high. And this one is more, he's high, but with ladies. On this in this verse, or, like, groupies if you want to be a little bit more specific.
It's a threesome.
Yeah. And he's got these groupies and he's high, and that's that. And I think one of them also, like, does coke, so I think that that's just also something I wanted to mention as well. And Danny Brown is on, like, the third verse, and he's good, and he definitely, like you said, he has definitely got a higher voice, which I suppose is appropriate for this song, and works well with sort of, like, Freddie's sort of, like, gruffness to him. And he also smokes weed, and it seems like both of their women, or, like, so the women that they're involved with, tend to do coke as well. So, like, that's something that they're both dealing with. And then, like, the song, like, kind of slows down, like a record, like, dying or whatever. And then there's sort of like a skit, and then somebody's asking if he's okay, and then it turns out that he's just high. I don't know if I've ever heard of that, where it's basically, like, you're, like, so out of it, like, from weed, that, like, you're, like...
Well, they never...
Like, tripping.
I got the feeling that they were doing a little bit more than just...
Right? I mean, because there's other things that it's going on. But
there's coke.
Yeah, there's definitely, like, something going on, and they're definitely all high, but maybe not all necessarily. But it's also, like,
they're drinking liquor, they're all faded and wavy, they're not... Yeah.
Definitely out of it. So, I mean, this is, like, a good sort of, like, weed sort of song. I gave it a 4.4. I didn't really love the skit, but it was fine. So that's it.
I like the way the track ends with the little skit kind of showing the effect of getting so high and so fucked up and out of it that you're basically slobbering on the floor, basically overdosing and shit.
Yeah.
And then it flows into the following song. But I really enjoyed this. I like the little beginning from Biggie. How's everyone doing tonight? I like that, And then Indo pushed out, chillest person Linda ever pushed out, and I kind of like that because it's like shouting out his mom a little bit, how she had pushed him out. Anyway, never finished college like my brother or my sister. I was in the crib laying in a cush cloud. And that's an interesting point. Like, everyone else in his family went down this route. Instead, he got real high. He got real stoned. Everyone thought he was kind of mind dead and pointless. Wasn't paying bills. Fuck you, person. You got to remind Fred because I'm carefree, sucker free. Remember when the people that wouldn't fuck with me? Now I'm on the screen in these magazines. They be trying to stop a person like Smoke Something G. And then it's like, it went from a point of y'all hating me and judging me for consuming marijuana to a point where now it's like, hey, Freddie's here, let's smoke something, can we get some free shit? And he's like, no, pay me, get the fuck out. And I kind of appreciate a little bit where he's coming from. As some of you may know, in October 17th, 2018, marijuana became legal in Canada. And I can assure you of one thing. I noticed a lot of changes in life surrounding that. Parents, as an example, there are a lot of middle-class people went from, and I swear it's like fucking overnight, you're smoking pot, it's so bad, and it's so bad for you, you can't be smoking pot too. It's legal! And they all use that fucking stupid voice. Who cares? It's legal! And I'm like, this is the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life. All because the law changed, and I suppose that's something else that happened too, is we have had relaxed views, but I mean, in a literal sense, he's kind of like, yo, I got high, and this led to success within my life, whereas the world around me kind of judged me, and now they're all there. Then in verse 2, he gets fucked up with Elise and Amanda. I really like the way he says that, like Elise and Amanda, because in my shows I make them hosts put the hands up. I didn't do that part proper, but I just like the way he said Elise and Amanda. So they came back to my room, they getting rammed up. We trying to slam or what? Because I'm trying to smoke. When I finish with these swishes, I'll be down your throat. So he likes to smoke his blunt, and then he likes to get his dick sucked. And 2 of y'all wanted me, 3 of us. Should I hit my people up? Hell no, I'm gonna pound them both. Because it's a one-man job. Ain't no need for the crew. I'm like, I get where you're coming from, Freddie Gibbs. I mean, there's a lot of other guys out there who seem to really want to have a run the train situation, which involves multiple dicks and one chick, and you share it with the homies, and in some circles that's the shit. Freddie Gibbs has the, I got this, I'm man enough to handle these women, and so he does. And I just kind of liked his approach, and I feel like there's something more suave about being like, I don't need the team for this. The team can be involved in a lot of things. This is Freddie time.
I got this. Yeah,
I just like the energy. The chorus is nice. The I get high. It's airy. It's cool. Then Danny Brown kicks in and just like early in the morning getting high with crusty eyes. And just saying that sounds like his voice. That's what his voice sounds like. Yeah. It sounds like it's high with crusty eyes. Rubbing on a mother, well, it's do or die. Hopping off my porch, had to get on my grind. All because the trouble just copped to my 9. Back in the caddy, smoking Schwiggers with my person. Make a store run, about to cop outs for some liquor. And I was like, okay, he just like paints this freaking picture. And then it ends, and I'm like, it was an interesting verse to listen to. Danny Brown is an incredibly interesting rapper. The combination of his voice and his obscure thought patterns, right? Like, run a bus stop, I'm trading hoes, and we ain't playing. Mid-wed listing, oven open in the kitchen, heated up the house when your shit could come up missing. So it's painting his context, but the way he like words it, it's so scattered. It like he feels high listening to Danny Brown. And I know at this point in his life, he's really fucking coked out a lot. Because like Atrocity Exhibition and him becoming more aware, that hadn't happened quite yet. But I liked it. I thought it was cool. I liked the way it ends. I give it a 4.4. I thought it was a little bit less good than the ones that were 4.5s, but like it's got a cool, airy, very easy to listen to vibe. And yeah, So everybody's kind of overdosing and whatnot. And Freddie Gibbs thinking about chicken wings. It's time to talk about Harold's.
Let's do it.
He goes to Harold's in the music video. And he gets those chicken wings. And when I looked at those chicken wings that he's eating there with that lady, I'm like, no shit. I'm going to Harold's one day. And I'm getting more than 6 wings because I'm not that skinny. So I'm going to get 12 wings with all the fries he can give me. Anyway, how do you feel about this banger right here?
This one's pretty great. The beat is super sick. It's like so smooth and like makes your like head go from like side to side. And Madlib, of course, again, does a great job, and you can tell like right away like how crisp it is. So Harold's is this chicken restaurant in Gary, Indiana. And again, so I looked up Gary, Indiana, and it's literally appears to be an abandoned city. So I can imagine what it's like living there, and like that's why he moved to LA, which we find out.
It's also hard to be a musician person in a city without a scene
like
full
where
of
everything
famous
is
people.
dying. Like it's just like there's nothing there for them. So that's how he grew up, and he's basically like reflecting, and you know he still carries a gun and isn't scared to get into anything with anybody, and he still loves his chicken. And I like the hook. I think it's great. I don't know. There's a lot of swearing, but it's awesome. A plate of chicken with the bread stuck to the bottom. But fuck my enemies. What you looking for? Bitch, I got 'em, bitch. Said bitch, I got 'em, bitch. Said bitch, I got 'em, bitch. And it just kind of keeps going like that. And he definitely has 'em. So this is basically, he's talking about weed, he's talking about ladies in the hood, and like how he gets like girls all the time, and it's like a nice song, I guess. I like this one. I mean, I don't really care necessarily what he's saying so much on this one. I'm just really enjoying like the beat and like the overall flow of it, and this is like, I'm not really paying too much attention to like the words so much, if that makes sense. So I give this a 4.5 on 5.
All I can say is I had like reviewed this album a couple weeks ago, and it's just been that late in getting the recording. So for the last like 2 weeks or so, I've had skinny 6 wings, mild sauce, with all the fries it could give me. I tear them bitches up. Like playing through my head for like nonstop. I've been craving Buffalo Bills, which is the closest thing to that we can get up in Montreal in my neighborhood.
Yep.
And they have chicken wings that kind of look like really shitty versions of the ones he was eating, but they're close enough, I guess. And then like when I saw how big the wings were in the music video, I was like, okay, I get why he's only getting 6, because there's a lot of fries and stuff, but he's also a skinny guy. He probably doesn't eat like shit like I do. So I'm like, I'm still convinced I want 12 wings if I go to this place. Like if I'm going all the way to Indiana for these
Gary,
wings,
Indiana?
For these wings, which is a little, it's like up there with getting Kripa-Cola. Like these are now bucket list items for behind that suit to like pull off. I would get like a nameplate from Gary's or Harold's, sorry, and just get it on the wall somehow, and just be this random.
I feel like I'd want to go somewhere where like CeeLo and like those guys like all like hung out.
This is food related, okay?
Yeah, I know.
KFC's Harold Sharks or Popeyes Adidas suit with a plated chicken got mob ties. It just sounds proper, and he's talking about chicken, and I really like chicken. I think he's literally really into it too. So simultaneously he's describing delicious fried chicken while how he's going to mob on his enemies like a boss. I got my license now. I'm backseat fucking every week. I think bitch, live in Miller, go to work, 3:30 school, vote with them. I was fresh under her skirt. And so it just kind of has like this old-timey remembering back to like when he would like go to Harold's, get some chicken wings, fuck girls in the back of his car. He didn't hit without that Trojan, fuck around, you might get burnt. So I appreciate a man who promotes condom use. She was raised in a church, turned out in the ghetto. Lock it, pussy pop, but I swear this bitch deserve a medal. And he just likes tearing up that church girl and teaching her what's up with it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. So, like, just the combination of that gangster shit with the guns, the chicken, like, literally the chickens, but, like, it paints this picture of you can see, like, a young Freddie Gibbs just being carefree, doing what he has to do, living maybe a harder life, but still taking the time to appreciate Harold's, you know, when Harold's was on 15th. you know, and the just the memories that came from some of the better parts of it. And I really like it. It reminds me a bit of Royce the 5'9". Granted, the Book of Ryan came later on in history, but he just did that song about like fucking bouncing his ball getting taken away by the corner store guy, and just these like regular humanistic things. Like, you don't have to be a gangster to appreciate that good chicken spot, you know? And I like the way that he kind of has that element to these tracks. And anyway, so overall, this was another great one. It's another 4.5. I really want chicken wings for weeks now, and I haven't had them, and I might have to rectify that. That's okay. 4.5, like I said. And those chicken wings look like the bomb. Like, this song could have come out as an instrumental and been stellar. Not to say that Freddie Gibbs and Raekwon aren't also great. It's just that Madlib's is that much more superior on this track to, like, everything else. Like, that outro is... So you get to the Genius page, and it says, warning, the outro is super trill. And it is. It's really super trill. I don't know if there's a better word to describe it. It just flows and, like, it stops, like, right? I mean, first of all, the beat's just fucking wavy. Like, that hook, that do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, wow, you don't need words there. That's just really strong. And it just kind of catches you in, and it just adds this effect. And then the song kind of, like, ends, and it just pauses, and then this, like, enthrallingly instrumental outro comes through where, like, yo... You know, like Dr. Dre likes to leave like 90 seconds of boring. Madlib is like the literal opposite. He brought like 30 seconds of the most rivetingly concise, like pulls it in and just perfects the song and like closes it out proper. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, this one's definitely pretty cool in terms of the sound. And this one's sort of about like that he's, well, I'll just kind of like talk about it. So he's like dealing with like the stress that he has from debts, and he, you know, stress from like ladies and kids that he's got and all this stuff. But he's got people that owe him money as well. So he's definitely got things that he needs to be dealing with. And I suppose it's sort of like nice to hear that he's like at this point where he's like not really wanting to be a gangster, but like, what else can I do? Like, that's kind of the situation that he's in. It's like, there's no other jobs for me. There's no other way for me to make money. Like, this is the only thing that I can do. And so it's not that he's wanting to do it. He's not promoting being a gangster or whatever and being a drug dealer or whatever. He's just saying like, this is my only option. And this is sort of like what he was dealing with. So he sells all the drugs. And, you know, he does what he can to survive. And he's like at the point where he's basically like well aware of the fact that he's going to end up going to jail. And sort of, you know, he understands the consequences of the choices that he's made. But this is unfortunately, again, the situation that he's in. And we've got Raekwon on the third verse. And he fits really well into this song, I found. And he's telling, you know, the same sort of thing, that he's like willing to steal to get by, and that he carries a gun. And again, like, they do what they can to make money, and whether it's stealing or whether it's selling drugs, you know, these aren't, you know, anybody's first choice of what you want to be when you grow up, but this is the situation, and these are like the, you know, they take the sacrifice of having to do this in order to like feed their family and get by. So yeah, so it's definitely like, it has like a dark, serious, sort of like eerie sort of sound to it. And like the last 30 seconds are like great, like, you know, super nice beat. And I'm not really sure like why it's there necessarily on this song, but it's not bad. It's short, it's quick, so it's fine. And this is like another song that's like honest and talks about like the hard times and the realities of you know, like this sort of situations that they're in, and, you know, Gary, Indiana, and like, you know, their life and like the choices that they had to make, and drug dealing and like their past. And so it's interesting to hear about that. And so they both do a pretty great job. So I gave it a 4.5 on 5.
Yeah, I like the like starkness to the way Freddie Gibbs spits his lyrics. It's always like, that's, I think, something that stood out to me, that's made me like remember. I'm like, Slamming drugs got me waking up in cold sweats. Sometimes I'm slightly off my rocker, but I'm on deck. And it's like right away, drugs doesn't give me this happy feeling. It's like I'm anxious. I'm fucked up, but I got this. Got 2 and a baby off my bitch's student loan check. Which to me kind of sounds like his girl got her student loan check, so he's like, yo, let me flip that and I'll get you back that money. So, and I'm like, whoa, that's interesting, right? Because it's details like that when, like, I don't think I've heard another rapper describe taking his girl's student loan money to flip it into drugs before. And I think it's noticeable when, after all of the albums we've talked about, when you get these things that you've never heard anyone say before. Mm-hmm. I'm not even saying he's the first one to say it. I'm saying I've never heard it before. Then she hit my line to get that girl. I call it phone sex. And then it's an interesting line because it's the double entendre of when a girl wants to fuck and you actually literally have phone sex, or a white girl being cocaine. And so when you hit the line to get that girl, he calls it phone sex, meaning it's distribution, which is just showing his clever wittiness. But Robin, like my problems ain't gonna catch up to me later. Bitch, I'm mobbing like OG Bobby Johnson, split your potato. I don't know who Bobby Johnson is, but I like the idea of Robin, like my problems ain't gonna catch up later. It's like he's living life in the now. And in a sense, I can personally relate to that. For a couple of years, I treated my credit cards in that kind of mentality where it's like you do what you have to do to acquire what you need to acquire, with this assumption that maybe one day it's not going to slam you in the face, and then it does and you have to deal with it. I mean, maybe credit card debt's not quite the same as robbing people, but anyway, the line I still related to. At the table, cooking, shaving, touching base with them bases, but they try to make a play for the year as soon as they taste it, and then he just kind of flows through about his gangster shit being proper, and he's making it now. And it's nice. Like it's really strong. And again, it just kind of paints it in this is my life kind of way. It's not a glorification, it's not a criticism, it's just what he knows. In the second verse, it kind of has some people trying to go for him. He's gonna go murk the whole litter. Told my girl to leave soon as I hung up the phone with her. Man, I heard you robbed the robbers. Look, Freddie, a cool person. Got an ice maker for a heart. Make person from the start. Life is like a movie. All I do is play my fucking part. So it's like, when he finds out there's some situations going on and he has to handle it, he's like, get out of here, to his woman, because he knows the violence is real. And sure, some people might think that they're going to come at him like he's a robber, they're going to rob the robbers, like they're going to come at him with some mentality of justice or whatever, but he's cold and he's going to come through, and he doesn't feel bad for it because he just played his part. He did what he have to do. Cheffing up the crack, the heroin, and weed a la carte. I call it Fast Freddy's. I should own a fucking restaurant. So in a way, the way he distributes drugs is no different than any other chef or whatever, just doing what he has to do to move his recipe through the hood.
Yep.
And he just kind of was fly with that. I really enjoyed the way he spits it. He's very fast paced with this, but then he ends it on such a hard line, you know, as he pointed out. Well, he broke him down and started selling nickels to the neighbors. Eventually, the penitentiary gonna see me later. And I like the fact that he's recognizing, like, yo, I was selling drugs to, like, the people around me and shit, you know? I know on a later track, he's, like, talking about selling to his aunt so that she doesn't suck dick off of the next dude, you know? Like, it's that kind of complexity where it goes, is it bad to sell drugs to your aunt if it prevents her from sucking dick? These are the moral questions in life that you would normally not ask. But eventually the penitentiary gonna see me later, because my mama told her if I die, then it was part of nature. What? And then do. But it's such a powerful way to end it. Like, look, this is just the cards that are dealt in life. I had to play this role. There was no other choice for me, and if I were to not make it through, then that's what it is. And so instead of just like I love her, it's like rest assured that this is the way it was supposed to be, which is a more serious, I guess, approach to that. Then Raekwon comes through. 28 days later, we all getting fresh. Got the heart to die for something, flesh to flesh. The Lambo got her outside, it's a stretch. My bitch, half Mexican, Afghan. I'm blessed from living tough times with rough lemons. A gorgeous watch. My team on dreadful level, yo. We still getting money right. And I was like, there's something different about Raekwon's words. Like, his voice and the way he raps sonically fits the track real well. And I guess you could argue Raekwon is meant to be like a projection of Freddie's future, where he's going to end up at the end of the day. Because otherwise, Raekwon's kind of flossy in a way where, like, there's no struggle in his verse. It's just all reward in a sense. It's just kind of nice, you know, he's ready, he's rolling through, things are good now. So maybe that's just kind of how I took it. Like, Freddie doesn't die, his future's more destined to be like what Raekwon brings to the table in that verse. But I thought lyrically it was Raekwon was a little bit weaker, but he sounded, like you said, like he belongs on the track.
Yeah.
And there's that outro, which is pretty proper. And overall, I gave this a 4.5. I thought it fit this album real nice. I could have done with just another Freddie verse personally, and that might have actually bumped it into that 5-on-5 line. And overall, like, I'm pretty impressed that, like, 6 tracks in, all the songs have a consistent gangster tone to it, but he manages to do it in a way where the subject matter is different track to track rather than just doubling down on some formulaic approach. It feels like this is a journalistic perspective piece, like his memoirs almost, which is really kind of fun. Which, I mean, yeah. Next up, I guess we can talk about Shitsville. This one has such a good flow to it. This is a real good song. How do you feel about this real good song?
Yeah, he raps pretty quickly on this one. I just want to like say that because it's like he spits fire on this one. And it definitely has like a really nice, grimy, eerie, creepy sort of like a beat that's just like, it gives you like anxiety. It's like it kind of has that like in it. And so it just like, I don't know, it feels interesting. And we're talking basically about the same sort of stuff as like, you know, some of like the previous songs, drugs, the hood, girls, poverty, like that kind of stuff. And he's dealing with his cars falling apart. And he's also talking about cheating and like situations, you know, there. And, you know, all of these terrible things are all just part of Shitsville, and like that sort of where he lives. It's kind of what he's talking about, and just like the realities that no matter what, like you're just going to end up on drugs, and like these same behaviors are going to keep happening as like the, you know, the older generations are just going to keep happening, and because things never get better and things never stop in Shitsville. And, you know, he like, talks again about selling drugs to get by, and that he's willing to be violent and do what he has to do. And like it's you know, it's the same sort of messages sort of, but just like it's just so like dramatic and intense, and like the beat has like this sort of like warped in like violin feeling, and again it kind of just makes you feel like on edge, like, you know, every like it's like you're just like in like this creepy you know, grimy, dirty city or something, and you're kind of just like scaling like around the buildings and things like that. It kind of has like you're always nervous and stuff. And so I imagine that that's kind of the unfortunate reality of like living in a place like that, doing these crimes, like being, you know, having to do all this when, you know, you could die at any point. Like it's just sort of like the reality of a lot of this, unfortunately. And I think that he's, you know, there are others that are just like him, that are in a situation, so he's not like alone in this. And like as we've heard, you know, we've listened to many artists talk about similar types of situations, poverty, and, you know, being in drugs and in violence and just like being involved in all of these things. And so it's not like unique just to him. So that's the unfortunate part here, is that this relates to like a lot of people on like a direct way. And I think that that's sort of just something to think about. And then like the last like 40 seconds or so are something that sounds sort of like the 80s. I don't know what it was. It was like, I have no idea what like the sample that was used was. I don't know what it was, but it sounds fine. It worked. And so yeah, this is just like life in the hood, sadly, another sort of raw, real track that we're getting from him, where he's talking about like his personal experiences and like the things that he's seen and whatever else. So I give this a 4.5 on 5.
I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying, except with the caveat that that chorus is totally like looking at how people act like they're better than him, or act like they're different than him anyway. And that's probably what I think is really cool about this track. Like, you wake up every day and pray before you sleep, right? You motherfuckers just like me. You shed tears when you're hurting. If I cut you, then you bleed, right? You motherfuckers just like me, but bitch, you acting like your shit don't stink. Bitch, you acting like your shit don't stink. I said you're acting like your shit don't stink. And then he's like, welcome to Shitsville, you know?
Yep.
And so I kind of took it like he's putting in this perspective where he's humble about his shit, which is definitely something I would say to be true so far with this. And I think he's trying to look at maybe the different rappers or the different, like I took this almost like an attack on like some more the industry, more on the different people in other hoods and whatever. So while he's like kind of like people ain't gonna shit and get the fuck up off the toilet stool, bent behind my tendons, I commenced to take these boys to school. So it's in a sense like, I guess if you look at the contest side of it, like if y'all trying to say some shit like you hard or whatever, then if you ain't gonna produce what you're supposed to, get the fuck out of here. I'm gonna show you what it's really about. Don't drive no yellow bus, but I got mayonnaise and mustard, which is, I guess, drug lines. Both tires gold wired on my Chevrolet bucket, and now my transmission leaking and my rear suspension squeaking. And I took that as lines of where you hide your drugs. Like you would stick it up where the suspension is, so it kind of adds a squeak. So he's actually just using these lines of his car falling apart to allude to his actual distribution methods, you know? But also conveying the poorness, like he's not rich. Because this is his fucking grim Shitsville. Drop a rock off to my geeker, fix my shit, man. I'm out here creeping, twist that shit, but I'm out here tweaking for that 20 twin. Hit that shit in 95, I watching Friday with my friends. Fucked your bitch in 96, hit that pussy for 6 minutes, said that dick was everything she envisioned on each business. And then, you know, Papa kept his condoms in his bottom drawer, they for his bottom hoe. I stole that shit, I was out, I wonder if my mama know. So that's interesting too. So his dad's out fucking the next chick and has these condoms stashed away, and he's stealing his dad's condoms. And meanwhile, he's wondering if his mom knows what's up with everything. And then she wonder if she know her older brother like to light them rocks. I wonder if she able to get by if I get killed. Told her I was knee deep in this shit. Welcome to Shitsville. So it's like ending on this confession that she's caught up in the middle of it, but like so everyone else around him is got their own version of shit going on. And I think the bigger point is you could be up in the suburbs, right? But what's the difference then when you got all your infidelity driven opium kids overdosing, blah blah blah? Like, I'm not trying to say it's all the same thing. I'm saying you can't act like your shit's better when every place seems to have its own like Shitsville situation kicking it, you know? People going shit and get the fuck up off the pizza. Got O's allowed in my living room like I was Lennox, trapped a person and his wife for his wallet and his wristwatch, and they say I might do life in jail for a kidnap. Bitch, I did not give a single solitary fuck. I stand on all 10 toes, one dick and two nuts. Don't do yayo or shoot up, but I went back and forth with some work and I went through a few plugs. So he doesn't care about the consequences per se. He's going to do what he has to do. He doesn't partake in the product that he distributes. He just kind of distributes and does what he has to. The white devil society dare a person to do drugs. And I thought that was strong because in a sense you could argue pretty easily that a bunch of white people pay a bunch of rappers to promote a bunch of messages of doing a lot of drugs. You could argue it really easily. You could probably argue against it, but it's easier, in my opinion, to argue that somebody's trying to make that happen. And I like how he doesn't promote that. Like, you don't hear Freddie outside of smoking pot go out there and tell you to do some other shit, you know? And, you know, weed's definitely in a different tier. He's trying to be a good person. And he acknowledges what he had to do, but I don't know. Crack was Black America's cup of coffee in the beginning. When they creep up and you wake and your crackers can fight the feeling. Motherfuck euthanasia. I'll lace your food with razors. Make you gargle with salt water. Excuse yourself from my table. And so I like how he kind of flips it back to point out that it was like a racist system that created this series of Shitsvilles that he encountered, and that there was definitely a lot of shit, like the CIA dropping drugs into the hood, etc. And then, I don't know, I like the way he just kind of creates that, like, you wake up every day and pray before you sleep. You motherfuckers just like me. Like, just that power in the way he says that, like, and then cheat on your girl, your wife, sneak out and fuck hoes, you know, drink all your liquor, blow weed, probably play with your nose. You know, you do all these regular ass shits. You're all fucked up. You're all just like me. We're all the same at the end of the day. And then there's that outro skit where he kind of establishes himself as something greater and bigger, you know? Like, he's not just your basic shit. He plays landlord and whatnot. I thought this was fire. I thought this was a standout track. This is the best song I've heard so far, and I gave it a 4.75. But what if I said it gets better? Let's talk about Thuggin.
Let's do it.
Man, this song's probably like even better. This song is so good. It's got like a 5 on 5 straight up on this. The beat is just like got this I don't know, man. It just feels right. Like you listen to it and your head just starts bopping and it just captures you in the energy. Like the beat feels as thuggin' as the lyrics. Like everything is smashing into that like gangster shit the way it's supposed to. But again, he keeps it through where it's not super grandiose. It's not super over the top. He maintains that level of solid real shit, you know, like people be like, Fred, you ain't never lied, fuck the rap shit, my gangster been solidified, still do my business on the side, bitch, if you polices then pay me, no, never mind, I was thugging. Just like he comes through, he stays true, he earned his gangster in a way. The rap shit is whatever, but really it's his business, it's his acclimate, it's his integrity that has gotten him to the point where he's at. Black and red laces in my number threes. Take a pull up out that wood and let that motherfucker breathe. Sit aside, bust a crib and let that motherfucker leave. Walk his ass back in and put him on his motherfucking knees. And I like that. He's just sitting out there puffing on his shit. Somebody fucks around with him. He lets him walk out the house just to like put him back in, drop him on his knees, show him what the fuck it up.
Yep.
I like the realness when he goes thugging. Never taking no for an answer. Might just take a loss, but bitch, I'd rather take my chances. And something I've noticed in all the real ones is they're okay about the fact that you don't always win. You actually do, in fact, take losses, and that this is a consequence of the game. But it's about taking the chance and knowing that you can win that is more important. Right. And I really enjoyed that. And I feel like he just kind of flows on through with this ambiance and this energy on this track. The music video is real hard. He's like kind of got a lot of guns and shit, like kind of like bringing you to the point of like, I really did this. I'm really from this world, you know. Might move away one day, but I'm always going to belong to the streets. And then he goes into the chorus. I'm straight thugging, and it feels so good, and it feels so right. And it's just like, this is my life. This is the whole attitude that I've had, you know, since I've been there. And he's kind of contextualized it all the way up until this point on this album. So by the time this track drops, you're kind of really feeling a level of empathy towards him due to the fact that he's contextualized the environment he's growing up in, the fact that he has no choice but to live this life, the fact that it's murky and gray, the fact that he's not arrogant with it, to a point where you just really feel like he's living that thug shit in a way like you're almost supposed to. Like he's like the embodiment of what it's supposed to be when he gets to this, and it just feels doubled up with that anthemic nature of this track. I think it's really fucking cool. Selling you the science of the street rap. Every motherfucking show I do is on the meat rack. I done been to jail, I did my best to not repeat that. I'm trying to feed my family, give a fuck about your feedback. So that right there is just powerful. You know, he's showing you the science of the street rap. So he's taking the music, the construction of what this is, and giving you the best possible version of it. He fucking kills it every time he goes live. He has, in fact, actually been to jail, but instead of wanting to go back and continuing to maintain the same lifestyle, he's trying to be different, be better, to feed his family, and he don't care what you think about it. Then after the feedback line, he goes critically acclaimed, but that shit don't mean a thing when you rocking mics and stealing microwaves cooking cane. So even if people really love your shit, it doesn't really matter if you're breaking the law and you're doing all this other crap, because that's more like the focus of the life and the consequences that come with it. Don't let the knob hit your booty when, or sorry, never tripping on a damn I'm too cold for you brocos. Don't let the knob hit your booty when the door closed, bitch. She let me hit it because I'm thugging. So I guess he only fucks fine girls, and he only gets to do it because he's thugging. Right. And then squares need not apply, etc., etc. I don't know. It seems like it just kicks in with this ambiance in that verse where he keeps it going, ending it on when there's why the feds worried about me clocking on this corner when there's politicians out here getting popped in Arizona. So he's got like, what do you care about me doing over here when there's real shit that y'all could be really worried about, you know, instead of me and my distribution. In the third verse, he keeps it going. We're not against rap, but we're against those thugs. We can't be legit when every person in your clique sold drugs. Predicate felons in my faculty, real killers can vouch for me. Teach a kid at the crib or your children might cop an ounce from me. So he kind of quotes the government when they're like, we're not against rap. I think it's Pastor Calvin Butts, and he goes, we're not against rap, but we are against those thugs. And that is from the Thuggish Ruggish Bone track from Bone Thugs and Harmony. Mm-hmm. And that's an intro.
Maybe it's something that was like said like more like something that was said outside of like rap, like maybe
it was
right?
part of that like attack on gangster rap, where it's like, we're not against the art form known as rap, as long as you're talking about shaking booties and stuff. That's totally okay. But the gangster, the reality rap, because keep in mind, like, it's not like Ice-T, I think, called it reality rap. It was like they were trying to convey this journalistic perspective of the hood and the environment that was being created. It's not meant to be this like glorification. It's not like what the Migos do with it is not, I think, the original intent of the gangster rappers. But then it's like, you know, they're against the thugs, and then it's like kind of pointing out that in the perception of these people, you can't be legit when everybody's selling drugs around you and everybody's a felon, and if you're not careful, they might come buy weed from you, because that's like the kids might come do that, because like that's just the environment, and if you don't give them a more strict or better way out of it, what choice is there?
Yep, exactly.
Smoke out in a Chevy with us, because in the past my low-class black ass would serve my own fucking family members. I hate to say it, ain't no need to be discreet. If she don't cop from me, she get it from a person up the street, because he thuggin', and yo, she probably suck his dick for it. She turned, so it ain't shit to turn a trick for it. And then it's like, man. And then his uncle had some girl that gave him the pipe, and then he basically tried to rob somebody and died. And, you know, like, he's living on borrowed time because he's made it past the expiration date. He realizes he's lived beyond, like, ethically, or perhaps is the time of living past 25. But, like, essentially the way his life goes, his conscience weighs on him. But he just puts it down like, this is what I had to do. I'm not going to hide from it. I'm going to own what I did. Or just, like, the ethical question of, if I had sold these drugs to my family, like my uncle, would he still be alive? Would he have felt the need to rob? Or did I do the right thing by preventing her from going to suck dick for it? Because, yo, when you're tripping on that, that's what's going to happen, and he knows it. So it's like, I think Freddie Gibbs does some interesting things with this track, where it's just like showing that thugging is a real thing, but it's not like a desirable thing per se. It's complicated, it's messy, but he kind of shows you the mentality that he at least brings to the table with it. And I think, I don't know, it's real. And I like that about it. And then I like how it just kind of ends with like, the police is down over here, come on, shit. It just kind of like ends. Yep. Anyway, I got it as a 5. Like I said, it's real cool.
Yeah. Like this one starts off by like, it sounds like a movie, like a parent guidance like intro sort of thing, and just sort of like, he's mean, he's not scared of anything, you know, he's obviously like been through stuff, and he's like ready for anything, and he never stops thugging, and then like in his lyrics, he describes like choking on his dick, which is like, or no, spitting on his dick, and compares that to his lyrics. So I thought that was like a new one, and I appreciate that. So cool. So he's fly, and he puts his dick all over the place, and, you know, he does what he does. And he talks about the fact that he knows like real killers, and they can vouch for him, and they know that he's just, you know, everything that he's saying is true. So you can trust murderers, I guess, is proof. I mean, I'll just take your word for it. But
it's more like from the sense that
like he's as hard and as gangster as he's saying.
The streets accept him as real as opposed to fake. Like, he's got that clout and credibility.
He's definitely not a studio gangster.
Yeah.
And like, you know, his entire family was sort of involved in drugs, and then there's like a little clip from like an old movie at the end, and it's like a nod to like how albums used to have like kind of little clips like that on it, and it reminded me of MF Doom. And I don't know if when I wrote that like I knew that that's what Madlib was involved with, so I thought that was just funny. And I think that that's, you know, clearly his influence is still here, or Madlib is just like doing what he does, and that's cool. So I mean, I don't love it as much as you do, but it's another cool song for sure. I give it a 4.4 on 5.
Fair enough. So we're going to end this part 1 here, because we still got about half the album, and that's what we've been doing. So let us know what you think so far. Looking forward to seeing your comments. Don't worry, we're going to talk about Mr. Jeezy as we start off the second track part. That's just what's going to happen. So feel free to subscribe to the channel to watch part 2 of more reviews. Hit that like button if you felt this shit. Talk to us in the comments. We'll talk back. Special thanks to the patrons. It's Milka Dempsey, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black, Hurricane, Linda Williams, Coney Sparks, and Scribble. They're dope. Support what we do. Help us get a new camera.
Yeah.
We put up the very basic version of BehindThatSuit.com. Based on that, they helped us get that. I wrote up the whole first page, and then I hit delete. I got so fucking mad. So I was petty and I haven't touched it since. I'm going to get that up and we're going to build out the website now. So feel free to check on over there. And at some point we'll have a newsletter thing for you to subscribe up to. And I don't know, you can let us know what you want to see on BehindThatSuit.com and what you think should be a part of that site. Anyway, people from the Patreon crew also get to request album reviews, such as this review requested by Coney Sparks, which is super dope. Anyway, so let us know what you think. I make music myself. You can check that out on Spotify, on this channel, all that stuff. Holden Stefan Roy, The Alternative Grind is my last project. Looking forward to your feedback, and you can support that if you want.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to get ready to record part 2, so live long and prosper, everyone.
Bye, guys.